Good morning, lovely people. My name is Ben Piccini, and welcome to the Radical Civility Nickelodeon. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm not even going to give you an intro today because this is probably going to be a little bit long. I need to introduce you to Gil Fulbright. So here we go. Let me show you Gil Fulbright really quick. So this is an ad from the let's see, it was the 2016 Senate race, I think. Gil Fulbright for Senate 2014. And it's fabulous. So take a look. And I'm trying to decide if it's a violation of fair use laws. But since it's a commercial and they probably want you to see it, I hope that they won't sue me for showing it to you in its entirety. I kept trying to think of which clip to show you, and the whole thing is just too good. So I'm going to show you the whole thing. Here we go. Gil Fulbright.
Hi, I'm Gil Fulbright. The people that run my campaign, they've made this commercial, and I'm in it. This campaign, it's not about me. It's about crafting a version of me that'll appeal to you. A version that visits random work sites with paid actors pointing at things. A version of me that doesn't find old people loathsome or pointless. Has a conventionally attractive yet curiously still family. Listening to my constituents, legislating, these are things I don't do. What I do is spend about 70% of my time raising funds for re-election. I'd do anything to stay in office. My name's Gil Fulbright, but hell, I'll change my name to Phil Goldbright, or Bill Fulbright, or fill up my mouth with farts. These are the things that are important to me. And these are the fine people that finance my campaign. Now, in order to do these things, I have to stay in office. And to stay in office, I have to keep these guys happy. Now, if any of these things make these guys unhappy, well, my hands are tied. So come November, the choice is clear. Do you want another spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists, or a spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists? I'm fill up my mouth with farts, and I approve this message.
All right, so this is easily one of the funniest political ads that I've ever seen. I was trying not to laugh while I was doing it, but I'm gonna highlight at least just one thing, and that's this. Sorry, if you're listening, by the way, and you're not watching on YouTube, hold on. Oh, I'm always so scared that I will sneeze into the microphone and hurt your ears. I'm so glad that didn't happen. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening, you need to go back to the clip of him with his wife, and she's got this great smile on her face, and he just looks absolutely dumbstruck. You know, like he just. I don't have a word to describe it, but it's absolutely hilarious to me. I mean, they did a really good job with this. I think the other one that's my favorite is at job sites and pointing at things. There it is. That's the one. It's so good. All right. So, and then at the end, it actually says, all right, so let me get to the end. So this is actually an advertisement from 2014, and I think they ended up actually running him in the Senate, but it's by a group called RepresentUS. And the reason why I'm talking about all of this today is because a friend of mine said, "Hey, have you seen the Jennifer Lawrence video from Facebook? I want your thoughts on it." I said, "I have. Is it the one about ranked choice voting?" She said, "Oh yeah, and I love ranked choice voting. What do you think about that?" By the way, I've heard this from a number of different friends. It was primarily one friend, but a bunch of people have asked me about these things. Let me start by saying I think that now I want to call him Phil Goldbright. I don't remember actually now what his name was. Gil Fulbright, I think. In the first place, is a brilliant piece of political advocacy. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's hilarious and it makes you think, and I like that. Second, I really, really support what RepresentUS is trying to do. I have not given to them money because I don't give anybody money quite yet. Once I have enough for my kids to go to college, then I'll start being a little bit more liberal, I think, with my money, but I'm not there yet. But they are the kind of group that I could see myself supporting. So everything I say today that might come across as a little bit on the negative side, please understand that I say that as a strong supporter. I just tend towards the more nuanced side, which means I like to go through and say, what might we be thinking about this that is actually wrong? What is it about this that we are getting a little bit wrong? So with that, let me actually take you to the ad for Jennifer Lawrence. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, by the way. I think that I can show you just a couple of clips and you'll get a good sense for what's going on. Jennifer Lawrence, by the way, is not She is a board member of RepresentUS. Larry Lessig is one, and there are a bunch of other people. I think they're trying to do good work. So let me give you a quick overview and introduction here. 2 quick clips.
We are witnessing a total political system failure in America. If you're anything like me, you may find yourself constantly overwhelmed by everything that's wrong with politics. And when I say politics, I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about the flaws that exist in our political system, regardless of which party is in power. And I know it's hard to talk about politics these days, but look, the government is ours. We pay for it, so it needs to work for us. And right now it doesn't, and I mean it really doesn't.
Okay, so she goes on, she makes some really, really clever points about essentially how politicians don't listen to us, how they are more worried about special interests and lobbyists, and I think that there is a very good point behind that. Oops, sorry, I clicked it again. And in fact, let me just skip ahead. So she does a very clear explanation of all of the things that are wrong with our system, which I agree with. And then she goes on a little bit later to talk about what the solutions are. So let me focus on that for a quick second so you can hear those, because that's what I want to talk about the most.
So the question is, how do we unrig this system? I'm obsessed with this idea, not just of unrigging it, but actually fixing it. That's when I met Josh.
This is it. This is the issue behind the issues. If we fix the system, we'll have so much more power to fix everything else. So I spoke to some of the most brilliant people in the country. Constitutional scholar Lawrence Lessig, Zephyr Teachout, and dozens of other constitutional scholars and experts and strategists. They all said the same thing. You could pass a law that would stop political bribery and fix our broken elections, and if you could do that, you could wrest power away from the corrupt establishment and put it back in the hands of the people. Here's how you fix our broken elections. End gerrymandering with independent redistricting commissions.
Create ranked choice voting so third parties and independents can run and win.
Implement automatic voter registration and vote from home.
And here's how we can crack down on political bribery. Overhaul lobbying and ethics laws and close the revolving door so politicians can't be bribed with high-paying job offers.
Mandate full transparency of political spending so we know who's trying to buy influence.
Give every voter a $50 or $100 tax voucher so politicians spend time fundraising from their constituents, not just that 0.05% that I talked about earlier.
If you could pass even just some of these reforms, you would undo that ring of influence and begin to reinstate we the people as the most important influence over our elected leaders.
Okay, so you have a sense now for what they are proposing, and I want to go through these really quickly and explain my take on each one of them. Okay, so let me start with the one that I don't actually care for very much, and I'll explain why right now. That's voter vouchers. I like a lot of the ones that are up here. That's the one that I am not a fan of. The simple reason is because I think there are 2 things. I don't think we need to subsidize more politics. And the second reason is because I don't think it's a very wise use of funds, to be blunt. I think there are better ways to do what we're looking to do. But I also think that what they're trying to do is limit the power of money in politics. And as I guess I could just tell you now. Let me skip to, no, I'll just say it now. I think Donald Trump and Michael Bloomberg illustrate that it really has a lot less to do with money in national big elections than we think. The place where money in politics actually matters is in local elections and state elections. Michael Bloomberg spent $500 million of his own money and got nowhere with it. Okay. And it's absolutely stunning to think about. And Donald Trump's campaign was all his own publicity. He spent very little and he was able to win. So I think we need to be really careful when we say that money fixes everything. No, money allows them to advertise, and most people either listen or they ignore it. Okay. There's a really simple way around this money in politics issue, and that is have voters think for themselves, do their research, and make decisions independent of advertising. I think that's an entirely fair way to go about this. In fact, I think that voter vouchers are simply going to contribute more to the problem, which is that we have too much of this conversation around politics all the time, instead of realizing the money in politics, the way that we fix it is to tell voters, you can listen if you want to, but we would really encourage you to be thoughtful and smart in the way that you listen to this stuff. Okay? I think that the solution, more than we think, at the end of the day ought to be focused on the citizens and not the legislation. Okay. I have less of a problem with transparent political spending. There are some free speech issues in there, but broadly speaking, I think that's fine. Overhauling lobbying and ethics laws, I think, is easy in theory. It's hard in practice, but it makes sense. Let me talk about the one that I favor, but we need to understand, and that's automatic voter registration and voting from home. I know that I'm probably just naive, but I think that online voting should be a thing, and I can pay for anything in the world with my credit card, and it doesn't become an issue. I think being able to vote should be able to happen in a lot of different ways, and there are security concerns with that, and I recognize that, but I think it needs to be a thing that can happen. All right, let me talk about these last two. Let me also say really quick, automatic voter registration. When we talk about that, we need to understand that what we're also talking about as part of this is that automatic voter registration is also going to slant things more towards the left slightly. Not a lot, but right now a lot of the folks, if I remember right, there's been some studies done that says that a lot of people right now who aren't able to automatically register, who don't end up getting out to vote, end up being percentage-wise a little bit more on the left than on the right. I'm still okay with it. It's fine. I mean, I tend more towards the right in principles, not in terms of current political parties, but I just think it's the right thing to do. We should make it as easy as possible to vote. We shouldn't throw up barriers for people to vote. That to me seems straightforward. All right, let's talk about gerrymandering and ranked choice voting. So gerrymandering, I think this is a great idea. I think the frustration here is that it's not really, Maryland is a gerrymandered state, and they could fix it very quickly. They don't, not because they're afraid that suddenly Maryland will turn red. There's no way that it's going to flip to the Republicans, but because there are actual individual legislators who would probably get voted out. And they don't want that. And I think that's too bad. And the other thing that they say is, well, we will do that the second that Virginia does that. Except you got to think about this. It sounds like a fairness debate, but it really isn't. What it really is saying, I'm not going to do the right thing until other people start to do the right thing. I think Maryland should start doing the right thing right now. I think Virginia should start doing the right thing right now. So gerrymandering, what it does, and they explain this in the video, is if you have a very, very safe district, and you're a Republican, then you're going to try to appeal more to the base, the people who are more likely to get out to vote, than you are to the average Joe who just happens to show up. If you have a competitive district, you have to get people from both sides. And with less and less competitive districts and more safe districts, what that means is that it radicalizes individual races. It doesn't mean that, there are very thoughtful people that are extremists, right? Marx was probably very thoughtful. In fact, he was very thoughtful. He wrote books, okay? Doesn't change the fact that there's a radicalizing, there's some centrifugal force going on. I don't know if that's the right word. I can't remember my physics, but there's an outward push on our spin cycle here. Okay, gerrymandering causes that problem. On the other hand, I think the independent redistricting panels sound really easy. They're actually fairly complicated. Gerrymandering is easy to spot. Non-gerrymandering is actually pretty hard to implement. Right? How do you draw lines that are fair? Right? It ends up being a little bit trickier than people think. So I don't much care for voter vouchers. I think that transparency in political spending is mostly okay. Overhauling lobbying and ethics laws is generally a good thing, but it's harder than people think. Automatic voter registration will probably tilt things a little bit to the left, but I still support it. I think we should be able to vote online as long as it's safe, and I guess more importantly, that it is perceived as safe. Easiest hack of online elections in the world is to say we hacked your online elections when they haven't. Right? So protecting people against that is actually quite difficult. And gerrymandering is a great idea, or ending gerrymandering, is a great idea. I just think it might not be as easy as people think, but having more competitive districts is a good idea as compared to the 14 or 15% that we currently have. All right, ranked choice voting is my absolute favorite of all of these. I am a big fan, and a lot of people are. They love ranked choice voting. A quick explanation of ranked choice voting. You get a ballot. There are 5 people on it. You decide that you could be happy with 3 of them. So instead of just putting your number 1 vote, you put your 1, 2, and 3 in order. If number 1 doesn't win, then your vote goes to number 2. There's 2 incentives that compete here. I only ever hear about one, and that's the thing that I don't like about ranked choice voting is all I hear about is how great it is, which tells me that people aren't thinking. Because I'll tell you what, if you want to sell me a used car, tell me everything that's wrong with it. Like, listen, I'm just going to break it to you now. There's a little smell under the back seat, And I don't know where it comes from. We tried to get it out. It's still there. We're going to keep working on it. But I just feel like I should tell you, that's when I'm going to buy the car. That's how my brain works, okay? No one is telling me what's wrong with ranked choice voting, which makes me scared, okay? So I think it's a really good idea. It's the one I'm most excited about, but you should know I'm still nervous that no one has done the thinking around what's the downside, okay? So ranked choice voting, you've got your three people, and if it's not number one, it goes to number two. If it's not number two, it goes to number three. The two incentives. The incentive for the candidate that is really good is, hey, I'm not just lobbying for first place votes. I'm not just going to be loud and obnoxious. I'm going to be pleasant. So maybe I don't get first place vote, but maybe I get enough second place votes. Maybe I'm not going to appeal to the base. I'm going to appeal as a moderate and try to be a little bit more centrist so I can appeal to people from both sides. I think open elections for primaries is also a really good part of this. So then you've got people from both sides coming in, and they're allowed to make their voice heard in the primary system. So all of these are good things. But there's an incentive for the voter that is actually not that way, unless I'm misunderstanding this. And nobody's talked about it but me, and I'm just me. So maybe I'm getting this wrong. As a voter, I think that this has a radicalizing effect. The radicalizing effect is, let's say, and I want to be clear here that none of this is meant to be a shot at either Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden, but I think most people would agree that Bernie Sanders is much more progressive than Joe Biden is perceived to be, okay? Let's say that I really, really want Bernie Sanders, but I know that Joe Biden is more likely to win, so I end up voting for Joe Biden. Under ranked choice voting, I can vote for Bernie Sanders 1 and Joe Biden 2. That's the radicalizing effect. So what I mean is, as the candidate, Bernie Sanders might say, yeah, I really got to get more second place votes. He might moderate more. But as a voter, I am more willing to vote for more extreme candidates because I know I've still got my second choice option. So it's kind of like proportional representation, right? Where, yes, you have more parties, but those parties become a lot more extreme, I guess. There are more nooks and crannies for them to fit into along the political spectrum. And so people suddenly disperse along the spectrum instead of having kind of two big blocks. So I like ranked choice voting. I am concerned a little bit that nobody's talking about the negative downsides. And this one in particular, this freedom to vote for the more radical candidate, I think first, it feels good to the voter. We like it. We want to be able to vote for that person that we really think would change everything and make the world different. But it does have a radicalizing effect. Saying, no, you only get one, you have to choose, you have to do all of this weighing, and you don't get to have it both ways, I think forces us to economize and say, you know what, I really wanted Sanders, but at the end of the day, I'll take a moderate. And I don't hear people talking about that. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's my take. All right. So now you know my thoughts on their specific policy platforms. What do I like about them generally, and what do I not like about them generally? Well, let me tell you. I think there's some really good things going on. Anybody who's trying to make democracy better is on my side, simply put. But I do want to show you a couple of other clips that demonstrate why I don't agree with everything that they're talking about. Again, I want you to take this from the perspective of somebody who believes very deeply in what they're doing. This is coming from a thoughtful fan, and it's meant as a friendly critique, but it is nevertheless a critique. So here we go. Let me show you two more clips real quick.
We believe the government should work for every American, not just a handful of billionaires and special interests. But it's not just an idea. In a few years, we've already racked up 85 wins all across the country. And if we can get those 85 wins to 850 wins, we can fix our corrupt political system, save America, and get to work on fixing everything else that's broken in our country.
All right, I love everything that she just said. I think that's not true. I like everything that she just said. There's one thing that I have a problem with, okay? At the beginning of the entire video, she says, we are witnessing a total political breakdown. That's the language of despair. It's the language of disaster. Things are really, really bad. They're worse than they've ever been. Okay, fine. I don't like that language. I think it's hyperbolic. I think it can even be sometimes a problem. Okay. But I hear what she's saying. But then I want you to pair that with what she just said here.
This 5 wins to 850 wins, we can fix our corrupt political system.
Okay, now listen to this next line.
Save America.
Save America. Okay, 3 things about that. First, I do think it's hyperbole. I think if we passed everything that they are suggesting at a national level, we would still have a democracy. And in a democracy, there are hard choices that need to be made. And if one person wants to go east and one person wants to go west, and they both hold a vote, what's the compromise? Democracy is going to involve trade-offs. Democracy is going to be hard. And I think what she's saying is that we can do this better and we can focus, and the wealthy can control it less and the voice of the people can control it more. Good. I'm okay with that. But I think that sometimes people see an ad like this and say, this is the solution. No, this is a marginal improvement. This is a probably good thing to do that will make things a little bit better. We will still have a system in which regular human beings have to operate. Okay. Second problem I have with this. Legislation is never going to save America. Sorry, this is probably more axiomatic. This is my assumptions. But the way that I am built is that I think that the way we fix America, or the way that we save America, is by Americans stepping up to the plate and being better. It's not by passing a piece of legislation. There's the quote, right? If men were angels, we would need no government. And the corollary to that is democracy was founded on the idea of a moral people. You can't govern a people if they aren't, right? I think there's a really important idea behind that too. And so if we're trying to fix America, if we're trying to make the world different, let me just re-emphasize, this is my social moderate take. Personal responsibility in political endeavors is probably more important than any of this, because it will fix all of this faster anyway. Right? We always emphasize how everybody needs to get out to vote, right? Automatic voter registration. Here's an example of that. And I don't mind that. I think we need to do more of those things. We need to drop the barriers. But I am consistently frustrated that whenever it comes to voting day, election day, everybody says, go do your civic duty. No one ever says, first do your civic duty at home and do your research, because you don't even know what a register of wills does, and you're about to vote for one. And state and local elections matter probably more in a lot of ways than national elections, but 50 times more than you probably need to about the president, and you have no idea who your local representative is. I think what we should do is start telling people that, yes, you have a civic duty to vote, but you have a civic duty to have it be an informed vote. And you also have a civic duty, as soon as you voted, to move on and focus on the other important things in your life. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. All right, sorry. I'm getting on my soapbox. I'm getting, feeling good talking about all this stuff. All right, let me talk about, I think, the other one that I wanted to talk about real quick.
America was founded on the promise of self-governance, but instead we have statistically non-significant impact on public policy.
All right, so she's making a really good point, and she actually has a graph in this earlier. Let me see if I can find it really quick. There's like a 30% graph. Yeah, there it is. So this is brilliant. Basically, what it says is public opinion doesn't matter. Here, let me get myself out of the way here. Public opinion does not matter. What matters here is whether people... the only thing that matters is lobbyists and special interests. So the reason why likelihood of passage does not correlate with public support, what it should be is a diagonal line going up, and instead of it's a horizontal line. And by the way, it's occurring to me now that those who are listening probably have no idea what I'm talking about. This one might be better viewed on YouTube, so I apologize for that too. So likelihood of passage should be a diagonal line going up this way, and instead it's kind of a flat line going over this way. Okay, she's right, and there are a lot of problems there. Okay, I want to make two kind of deeper level points though. Okay, the first point is I don't think that democracy is democracy because we make better decisions. I'm going to talk about this in a future episode, so just maybe, put it in the hopper and remember that I'm going to come back to it. Democracy has never been about making better decisions. I don't think that democracies make better decisions. I don't have any evidence that we do. Okay, rather, I think it's about universal dignity and making sure everybody has a voice and that we can throw the bums out, right? Meaning if there's a terrible tyrant and we can vote them out if they do bad things. That's what this is all about, okay? So now that I've said that, the second issue that I have here is, and I don't mean to sound terrible, but I'm about to. So the reality is she's talking about in general the voice of the people versus the voice of the elites and the special interests and lobbyists. Okay, I get what she's saying. But the reality is that you and I have statistically zero vote weight how do I say this? The reason why it feels like your vote isn't worth very much is because your vote isn't worth very much. I'm sorry, it's true. Okay? You don't have much of the vote. And with every person that it has the ability to vote, your vote total goes down. Your size of the pie, the weight of your vote as a fraction goes down. Okay? And so I think it's really important that we understand this. We attach a lot of meaning to this vote that is actually statistically completely insignificant. Okay? And I actually have a number of good friends, thoughtful, kind, good people with the best of intentions who have come to the point where it's like, I don't vote because it's not worth it. It doesn't do anything. And they have very, very thoughtful reasons for why they do that. I'm not there. I still believe in the civic duty idea. I just happen to think that we need to, again, know what we're voting for first before we go out. We have the civic duty to educate ourselves before we vote, and then to vote, and then to move on with our lives and focus on the most important things. But I do see what they're saying. Now, her argument's a little bit different. What she is saying is the voice of the people versus the voice of the elites. We need to change it so that it's not special interests and lobbyists are getting their way, so that it's actually things that are popular among the if things have public support, they should get passed. Again, my argument is I'm not sure that public support is what should be passed all the time. I'm not sure that if we had a system where we had direct democracy and we simply voted on everything by referendum, that would be a good thing. So while I see what she's saying, and I think there's a good point to it, I also want to challenge the premise just a little bit and make sure that we're aware of what she's saying. Okay. All right. So those are two fairly admittedly nitpicky, and I'm not trying to, again, this is friendly criticism. Okay. But a couple of things that I think are really important. So the language of disaster and then the language of salvation, something I kind of balk at a little bit. Your vote doesn't matter because it really doesn't matter. Sorry. Especially in national elections. Like statistically, that's not what's important. What's important about it is doing the right thing, being educated on your vote, and doing small things that matter every day. And last, I already talked about, Mike Bloomberg spent $500 million and it didn't get him anywhere. The solution to these things is people being more educated and ignoring bad advertisements. A student walked up to me at school the other day. They were like, I'm really excited for Mike Bloomberg to finally get elected so he stops advertising to me. Mike Bloomberg had dropped out of the race like a week earlier. Kid didn't even know, right? He didn't even know who Mike Bloomberg was. He was like, wasn't he like governor of Texas or something? And I was like, yeah, that's what he was. And I didn't even whatever. I did tell him it was New York, and he was a mayor, not a governor. But anyway, so Mike Bloomberg runs for office, spends $500 million of his own dollars, and gets nowhere. So let's keep in mind that money isn't everything, and there is a saturation point with money, right? Local races, it matters way, way more. National elections is not where it matters that much, even though that's where our brains tend to go. Okay. So I think that there are ways to fix this problem that are a little bit more nuanced. But again, I think RepresentUS is doing a good thing. All right, so what's my big problem? About to tell you my big problem. You're not going to like it, though. Gets back to what I said about civic duty. So I've talked about how we need to educate ourselves. Go vote. I wish they had a sticker that said, go research and then go vote. That'd be fun. Maybe I should make that sticker. That'd be great. Do your homework and then go vote. Instead of a I voted sticker, it's I voted and I know what register of wills means. Right? Sorry, in Maryland we have to vote for register of wills. So I think that would be funny. You have a civic duty to get educated. You have a civic duty to vote. These are very small things. Both of those are very small. You should do them. They're the right thing to do. Be educated, go out, vote, be done. And then your third civic duty is to remember that politics should be 1% of your life, not 99% of your life. And in the last 50 years, I think we've seen a shift in that. And this is my biggest critique of RepresentUS. And the reality is you can't get anywhere with being a five issue coalition. You have to be a one issue coalition. So this isn't actually a critique of RepresentUS or Jennifer Lawrence or Lawrence Lessig or any of the other people or Phil Fulbright, right? All of these people are doing something that they feel is right, and that's how we make change in America, so good for them. I have no problem with any of it. I just want to make sure that when people see this ad, that they don't suddenly think, this is the thing that will bring my life purpose and meaning. No, it won't. We as a country have started to worship at the altar of politics. And I think part of the reason is because we've shifted away from religion. We've shifted away from a lot of the institutions that bring us meaning and purpose and structure our lives and give us a sense of why things are the way that they are. And as we do that, suddenly we're looking for, all right, what's going to give me purpose and meaning? What's going to give me some understanding of what's going on? Well, I don't know the full answer to that, but here's what I do know. If the problem is that we worship at the altar of politics, then making a slightly more efficient, more effective, more beautiful altar is not the fix. Part of the fix is that we need to realize that politics should matter a lot less, because our lives should matter a lot more. The people we love, the people we care about, right? The democratic machine functions on this idea that it needs you to vote a certain way. And even if you don't vote that way, you at least need to vote because you need to pay attention to all of the ads that are out there. And the media responds so much to this, in part because that's how they get paid. And they need people to, no matter where you thought, I'm going to give you an example, sorry. No matter where you come down on the issue of impeachment, the impeachment was perhaps the best example of this that I could ever find. No one that I know of ever thought that the impeachment was ever in doubt. Everybody knew that the Republicans were going to vote to acquit. I knew it before it started. I mean, it wasn't even a very complicated case. It was just very obvious. They had already made the statement. I mean, I suspected that one or two might vote to convict, and I still kind of hoped, but I wasn't dumb. I knew it was going to happen. You should have seen CNN's headlines while that was happening, though. Oh, man, every time, if Mitt Romney sniffled, it was breaking news. Mitt Romney might think about, it was crazy because the media needs headlines. They need eyeballs to grab. And so what happens is more and more of us are paying attention to this political machine instead of saying, what matters more is helping in my community and being a good employee and helping my family and reading to my kids and doing fun things. Life satisfaction is never going to come through politics. I mean it when I say, in the most honest sense of the word, there is no better graven image, there's no better idol that we worship than politics. And it leaves us, I love, there's this verse somewhere in the Old Testament, I think it's in the Old Testament, where, they eat but they are never filled. They drink but they are never quenched in their thirst. Politics is kind of like that. We could devote everything in our lives to politics, and at the end of the day, we'd only get a very, very small percentage back in terms of real satisfaction. Now, I am a religious person. I think that religion fills a very important part of my life, but that's not my message. My message is there are things in your life that will bring you real satisfaction. I don't think politics is ever going to be one. The people you love will. Self-satisfaction will. The feeling that you are growing and improving and becoming a better person, more talented, and that you're developing as a human being, those are the things that are going to bring you actual, real, lasting satisfaction, meaning, purpose, joy. And those are the things that I think we are having a hard time with. And so while I appreciate everything Jennifer Lawrence is trying to do, one of the bigger things, in my list of priorities, one of the things that I am seeing is a crisis of meaning, a crisis of purpose in the American electorate. And they're turning to politics, hoping that politics will have the answer when they don't. And so my response is a simple one. Yes, do all of these things. Do them thoughtfully, argue about them, go back and forth. And maybe I've missed some. Maybe automatic voter registration is a terrible idea. Tell me about that in the comments. But at the end of the day, don't for a second begin to believe that politics has the answer. It never will. It wasn't meant to. It was meant for you to go out and pursue your own happiness. So go and do that instead. Thanks for listening to my soapbox, everybody. Seriously, thanks for listening. I hope you found it helpful. Radical Civility is written, produced, and edited by Benjamin Piccini. The views expressed in Radical Civility are not necessarily the views of myself, my employer, my religion, my family, my pets, or myself when I'm older and wiser. Goodbye, everybody.